Welcome to Monday Motivation. Now, this podcast is not going to be long enough to even get you to work, but it will give you a lot to work on, because the most important thing you can work on in life is yourself. Welcome back to Monday Motivation. Jim and I are wearing the same things because we haven't gone anywhere. You just had to wait till next week. Yeah, we've been sitting here all week.
Sitting here, man.
But it's great. Haven't changed. But we're excited that you're here, and I'm so thankful for you, Jim, being here, taking time off the road, literally touching thousands of people, changing people's lives. Best-selling book, Hope is Where the Heart Is. And this word hope is so elusive. And it's ironic because we were just talking about this before we started filming, but it was much more dire decades ago, but people still had hope.
Oh, absolutely. I hear the stories from my grandparents. Of course, they're passed now, but I hear them talk about, my grandmother grew up in Basile, Louisiana. I don't think you can find it on a map even anywhere. And she grew up picking cotton. In third grade, fourth grade. In fact, she didn't even learn English until the third grade. Yeah. And yet she talks about her childhood with such regard.
Yeah. My mom picked cotton and didn't even use an indoor restroom until she left home at 18. So
wow.
Yeah, you think about, but they were happy.
Yeah, well, they didn't have anything we have today. No conveniences, and unfortunately, and we were talking about this as well, is that it's a dual-edged sword. Like double-edged sword is technology and things like that. You would appear it would connect us more, but it doesn't. And so back then there was a lot of difficulty. People would be poor. They're struggling. Infant death was very high. So you'd have sudden infant death and things that would happen like that. And these people mourned, but it didn't rock their world because they had. I don't know, they helped each other. So, family looked out for one another. There was an extended family that was there. You knew where your grandparents, they lived right down the road. And now, families are so spread out, there's no nucleus to be able to work with. And not only that, humanity. I don't think humanity is different. Our practice is different. We've gone from sitting on the front porch and waving at people and talking to people and seeing people to building backyards with fences around them where we just stay to ourselves. And if you stay with yourself, you are limited to just what you know.
Yeah. And
so in the most dire times, people found hope because they had support with people around them. Yep. And today, we're not really connected that way.
Yeah, it's ironic, isn't it? We have technology and apps to keep us connected, but we feel more disconnected. And I think the pandemic really brought that to light, where loneliness and hopelessness are great friends.
Oh,
so together, they're companions. So a lot of people get lonely in the issue I want us to talk about today because they think, I'm the only one that's ever gone through this, or we're the only marriage that's ever dealt with it. And one of the things your book talks about is this issue of adultery, and people don't realize or think about the fact that affects 42, depending on who you read, 42, 45% of all marriages that would be listening to us right now. And it affected your marriage in a very personal way, which you guys get very raw and real about. So take us down that road that I want people to get the book, so not to, just the highlights of what you and Shannon experienced. And, you've been married for 35 years now.
Yep.
And a lot of people think, oh, wow, 35 years. If you've been married 35 years, you've got some stories.
Yeah.
You've got some battles.
Some of them you don't want to write about.
Right, yeah. And you've won some battles, and that's just real life. But take us down your road and your story about what you went through.
Yeah. I think that my mindset, even though I had let's get to the next day, I had this mindset of pleasing people all the time. And so to reveal who I was behind my wall was a pretty difficult thing to do. And we all struggle with that, I think, to a certain degree, greater or less, even in revealing ourselves, because there are things about me I don't like about me. So to risk sharing that with you is a pretty big risk. And we are today live in a culture where if you fail or you share weakness, it's used against you. You're canceled. You're pushed aside.
Just one wrong.
All you got to do is make a mistake. I heard, and I don't even remember what it was. I heard just recently that there was someone who made a comment when they were 14 years old. They're now in their 20s or 30s, and they're losing their job because of something they said when they were 15 or 14 years old, right? And it was wrong. These are different people now. They're grown and stuff. Back in a day, people looked out for that. Well, for me, I was just convinced that if I can be what you need, everything's going to be okay. So I did have a picture that I showed different ones to each person. That led into everything I did. Why
I want to remind people about the whole thing. We're all messed up.
We're all messed up.
That doesn't give us an excuse to mess up.
No.
But if we're not real about the fact that we're messed up and don't get authentic about that, then we're just going to continue to mess up. To your point, 100%. I'm just trying, if I had 10 dads, well, the moment I meet someone that says they're significant to me, no, you're not. You're going to leave probably in 18 months.
People come and leave.
Yeah, people come and leave, even though I'm trying to please them. So
exactly.
But again, I know you
and
said
if you work harder, though, you might keep them. So you work harder to keep.
Yeah, perform,
and it's a nasty. You said circus earlier. It's a nasty circus to be in because it is like this dog and pony show. You trying to keep people interested in you. So I brought this into my life, my ministry, everything I did. People used to say he's so secure, he's so strong. Look at him. No one tells him what to do. Well, you're right. I told me what to do. And it was to please other people, to find that significance and acceptance. Well, in my relationship with Shannon, I brought in a lot of that baggage upon her. I'm telling you, there's not a human being in the world you could talk to, and they would say, man, Shannon was a rough woman. She was mean. She didn't pay attention to Jimmy. She didn't love Jimmy. There's not an iota, I don't know if they use that word anymore, a shred of evidence that Shannon did those kind of things, right? Yet, with my perspective on life, I started playing a role with her. I introduced enough intimacy for her to feel good and for me to feel good with that relationship. But she didn't know me and I didn't know her. And so I brought this stuff in from my past of you can't trust, don't give too much, right? And I performed, but eventually, especially if you're in a longer relationship, you can only perform so long before you go, I need something here. But here's the caveat, or here's the difficulty there. Shannon didn't even know who I was. There's no way Shannon could meet a need I needed internal because I never even revealed it to her. So when she would miss things, just living life, I would ascribe that to she didn't care for me. So I convinced myself that Shannon, I wasn't significant. And it was deep stuff like this. I would say, hey, if you're going to the grocery store, grab me some white grapes. And she would come back and she had forgotten, and she likes red grapes, and she brought red grapes back, right? And I'm like, it's obvious you don't care about me. Now, it's goofy. Okay, because we all forget. We all mess up like that. And in people who are healthy, they go, why didn't you get my grapes? Go back and get them, or I'll go get them, or forget you, right? For me, it went into the heart of, if I mattered, I didn't ask for much. I just asked you to get me some grapes, man. And you couldn't even bring me some grapes. Did it start on the first time that happened? No. But I started then in my bias, a cognitive bias, I started biasing everything towards that. If Shannon asked me a question and then didn't do it, it's all kind of things.
And I think this is a big nugget. The little things are what makes the big things happen.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people are like, oh, we'll never go through an affair, or I will never cheat. They'll never cheat. And it's that small step, slow slide. It's
Absolutely.
Not just... And a lot of people miss that. It really is in the grapes. It really is in the small things.
It really is.
And it really is in the, I'm not revealing who I am. I'm not letting you know that I'm frustrated. I'm not letting you know how I feel. I'm just going to let the little things slide. And that kept sliding. Go ahead.
Yeah, and what happens too is there's two areas. One, I came in and I was withholding information, and I wouldn't even say it was conscious at that point, because you just get into an unconscious competence of being crazy, so to speak. And so I'm not sure I knew that. So one thing that happens is when we're struggling and we say, I want to reveal myself, is we begin to reveal ourselves and the other person is taken aback and they reject us. Now, rejection doesn't necessarily mean get away from me, I don't want you anymore. It could be you know what, no, stop. You shouldn't feel that way. And I don't know how you can tell someone how they should feel, right? Or we try to control and change the situation. Acceptance of who a person is key. And not accepting what they're doing necessarily, but refusing to control them as a result of it. So there are some people listening to this, you're not revealing yourself because you're connected with people who, when you do reveal yourself, they reject it. And so you sequester yourself more. And so that's important. If you're a couple and your spouse shares something with you and you get in their face about it and try to change them on it, you're horrible, you're this, that, they're not going to share more with you after that. There's I'm not saying you're not going to be hurt. I'm not saying it's that I've shared stuff with Shannon where she cried and was hurt. But one reason I literally could share anything with Shannon right now. But the reason I can do that is because these small times and before I've released information and said, this is what I think. And instead of Shannon going, God, what is wrong with you? Are you a nut or something? She would go, okay, I'm not sure I get that. But I could feel the acceptance, not the immediate rejection. And there are some people that experience that every day in their life, and you will not build intimacy that way.
Yeah, it's a huge nugget because hope leaks.
Oh, it goes.
I've done wedding ceremonies and no couple stands at the wedding altar and is like, I hope we make it 2 years.
No.
It's like, I bet we won't see the fifth. There's high intention. There's so much hope. They even buy a cake and have a DJ. But hope leaks through these small things. And you got to such a point. There's a time you were on the back porch of this American dream. You had the house, the cars, the job, the money, the prestige, the significance, these people that think they know you. And you actually looked at, and how long were you and Shannon married when this happened? It
was like 22 years.
Yeah, so 22 years in. And what did you tell her?
Yeah, at that point, I had separated myself to a place where I felt totally alone. I had done it. And I was totally disconnected. I remember walking into the doors of fall afternoon, coming in, sitting Shannon down and saying, I need to tell you something. Without any fanfare, any kind of breaking it in a little bit, softening, I just looked at her and said, I just don't love you anymore. And I try not to picture this in my mind too often.
Yeah.
Shannon has beautiful big brown eyes, and they welled up with tears, not quite flowing, but because she was blown away. I told her I loved her in a practical sense for 20 years every morning. And she was blown away. And I said, not only do I not love you, well, I love you kind of where a person would love another human, but I don't love you as a husband should love a wife. In addition, I'm in love with someone else, your best friend. And that rocked her world. And all I had done, this isn't rocket science, Micah. All I had done is transferred my investment intimately from Shannon to another place. Now, this was to another person. Some people do it with their jobs.
Sure.
I've had associates that they work out, 6-7 days a week, 2 or 3 hours a day because it makes them feel good and they feel significance. They go home, they don't feel good, and so they go work out more.
Yeah.
There's
the gym
a
is
lot
their
of
mistress, or the golf is their mistress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so
the
that's
grass
what
isn't
happened.
greener on the other side. It's greener where you watered it. So you
100%.
started water. Yeah. And you guys do, in my opinion, an incredible job walking back through, like you said. I don't really want to go back there much. Mm-hmm. And I do believe a lot of people can relate to this story, either as the one who betrayed the other person or the one who was betrayed. Neither one is winning at that moment. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's cold, it's heartless, but you're empty. Mm-hmm. And they're shocked, mm-hmm. and now you're on this path, and there feels like there is no hope.
Right.
And especially in relationships, we say, okay, well, I know I shouldn't hope in my job. I could lose it. I know I shouldn't hope in money because it always has wings. But this person will always be there. And when that person isn't there or says they don't want to be, it just feels like the whole thing collapses in front of you. And you went down and in the book describe how okay, well, this person's always going to be there. This person will make me happy. And now I've found the woman of my dreams. And that doesn't last very long.
No.
And you end up in another state, Shannon's in another place, and like you said, and a lot of people listening can relate to this, your entire relationship is in a U-Haul truck in a few boxes.
Yep.
And there is a hopelessness to that anyone listening to us right now that maybe is there. And I talk to people every week that are there. That goes back to what we talked about episode 1, 1 day at a time, 1 hour at a time. Tomorrow's a new day. Get a friend, get someone to start walking with you. But you found yourself alone. You and Shannon had already walked through divorce, and she left you alone. She respected you.
Yeah, it's a weird concept, actually. I talk to clients about this all the time, and I say weird is kind of tongue in cheek. If someone asks you to do something towards them, in other words, leave me alone or something like that, if you honor that, you're actually demonstrating respect. Because I'm an individual, right? When I asked Shannon to leave me alone, I said, leave me alone and talk to me. She did. It was a few months. Now, we were working through, what the divorce would look like and stuff like that. So we communicated business-wise, but no more of the, social or kind platitudes or things like that. Those were absent. And so it was an estranged time for me from everywhere because the other woman had broken up with me. And remember, when you've put your hope in something and it's gone, in psychology, they call it a focused illusion, that one thing's going to do it. When you do that and it's gone, you're destitute. I remember being on the floor in the fetal position, crying like I've never cried in my life on the construction site when I finally realized that I had given my life up, everything up, and here I am alone when a whole time, Micah, I was looking just to be loved and significant. The paradox in that is that I was receiving tremendous love, but because of my perspective and because I hadn't looked inside and addressed some stuff, I was unable to recognize it. And it wasn't until I got some good help, someone who could help me identify some factors in me, that I still was kind of a slave to those desires, right? But there's one thing that was powerful about our story, and that is this. In all I did to Shannon and everything I said and the horrible things that were done, she never took opportunity to hurt me back. She never took opportunity to destroy me to other people. She focused her eyes, and we do secular interviews all the time with different TV stations, stuff like that, and they don't want us to talk about faith. I honestly don't know how to have hope in hopelessness without the power of God. And Shannon will tell you, she did all the other practical stuff, and I think you need the power of God in practical use, but Shannon will tell you, she said, it came to a moment where I just looked at God and said, God, you're my hope. I've been hoping for Jimmy to change, hoping you to do something for Jimmy. God, I want you to just continue to work in me because you're the author, you're the finisher of my faith, you're the author, the finisher of my hope. And that sustained her. And enough time for God to do his work on me.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to talk to Shannon, and when you read the book, you hear her heart too. As a matter of fact, the last chapter of the book is Shannon is the hero.
100%.
So she never lost hope, and it was that shift for her. I forgive Jimmy, but now Jimmy's not my hope. God is.
Yes.
He's the source of my hope. And to your point, she became the best version of herself.
100%.
When you saw her again months later, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, just healthy, she's vibrant, because when you get your hope in the right place, no matter what you're going through, how dark the valley, that hope, it literally changes you from the inside out. And Shannon's finding that hope, living that hope, grabbing a hold of that hope. Like you said, when you saw each other again, you had been down such a hopeless path. You were the worst version of yourself. And so
I can't even imagine why she would want to talk to me at that point.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, so she, and this is what's so special about the book. So not to give anything away, but you got to tell this part where she texts you after a month or so. Tell us about that interaction.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. She honored leave me alone. And there was one particular time towards the end. We were cordial at this point. The affair was over, but we were separated, still moving for divorce, because that's the only option I could really visualize. And in a kind of a business text at the end, she said, I just want you to know I think about you and I hope you're doing well. Time had been passed. Life had been dealing with me. God was dealing with me. And for some reason, I text back, hey, thanks a lot. I hear those things. I just want you to know I think about you sometimes. I'm not real sure why I wrote that.
Yeah.
I'm really not. I'm not real sure why, but I did, and I sent it. She happened to be on an airplane flying to Texas for her brother's marriage, for his wedding. And when she landed, it came in. And she looked at it, and she went, oh. And she called me. I remember seeing the phone ring and her number was there, and I went, "Oh no, what did I do?" You know, because I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't interested in a relationship. I did not love her romantically at all at that point. So I pick up the phone and said, "Hey." She goes, "Hey," and we start small talking for a little bit. It led to the point of, "So, you know, how are you doing? I know you're not with the other woman anymore. What's going on?" And we just were having casual conversation. And she said, "I saw your text. Said you think we could be friends and talk sometime?" And I said, "Well, yeah, sure. Why not?" You know. She said, "Well, why don't you come to San Antonio?" I said, well, there's a couple of things that we might want to consider there. Number one is your brother's getting married, a wedding which I was supposed to perform, but I'm no longer a minister and I'm no longer a part of the family because I committed adultery and left. I don't think that's a good situation to go to because in Texas, they could kill you just because you had it coming to you, you know? So I'm not going to show up and do that. Don't mess with Texas. I said, she goes, well, you might be right. So she checked with her family. I am the most blessed person in the world. I will acknowledge that in this arena. Her family said, if Jim's done with that and he's willing to be a good person and come talk, he can come with his head held high. I don't deserve it, but I received it. She called me back and she told me that. And I said, wow, that's nice. But frankly, I do not have the money to do this. I just started my company, construction, and we were making money, but spending every penny we got. You know, so they call that broke. You know, and my credit cards were charged up. She said, She goes, why don't you come? I said, I can't afford to come, Shannon. She said, do you have anything to write with? I said, yeah, I'm on a construction site. You know, she said, write down my credit card number. I'll buy the ticket. I get choked up. I don't understand that. I'm convinced I wouldn't have. Maybe different. But she stepped out in faith. Wow. Could I have blown her away, rejected her? And I took her credit card and bought a plane ticket and got on a plane and flew to San Antonio just to talk. And got off the plane, walked downstairs. Her stepdad is just an amazing guy, Bill, Vietnam. He was a prisoner of war, and he's a tough guy, but a little guy. And I was smiling at him first when I walked out. And he gave me the universal hey head shake. And I looked at Shannon, and I'm not going to lie, she was beautiful. She almost glowed. And it felt like forever, but it's probably a second or two. She came to me, put her arms around me, gave me a hug. She said, you look great. The first lie of the new relationship, so to speak. People say this. She said, when you think about she bought your plane ticket, when you think about that she had gone all this time with the horrible things you said and the horrible things you do, yet she did not quit. When you looked at her being beautiful in that position, you must have just overflowed with love for her. And the truth of that is that's not what happened. I looked at her and I thought she was beautiful. I was grateful for her at that moment. I thought she was a great person, but I had zero romantic love, Micah. Yeah. Zero. We had to get to a place. Love is either nurtured or killed. And I killed it. But Shannon left it open. She didn't shut the door. And she continued to love me because she was in a place where she was the best version of her. She had the ability to love me to health because I was in a really bad place. And her strength became the strength for both of us for a while until we got some help together and then started working on things. And then the explosion happened in our life of intimacy and connection. And I can be 100% frank in the fact that we have the best relationship now that we've ever had in our life. And it's not because we're special or unique or we're smarter. It's just because we are destined. We are determined to remain intimate with one another. And I'm not talking sexual intimacy. I'm talking about be open and honest. We're going to fight for one another. We're not going to fight at each other. And that's where we've been living. Yeah.
And I think that's an incredible nugget to land on is stop fighting with that person. Start fighting for the relationship. And also a lot of people look at hope of these big leaps, these massive jump out of an airplane, right, skydives. And as I've talked to people who've heard your story, they'll say, well, I can't believe she gave him her credit card number. But then I'll have guys say, I can't believe he got on the plane, went to Texas.
Yeah.
And so it's these small steps. And hopefully those who are listening today, you can say, you know what? I've got to take the step of forgiveness. Forgiveness is the path toward hope. I've got to take, no matter what happens.
And it's key
you've
for
got to
forgiveness
let go.
as well, Micah, is that forgiveness, if the person wants it, it's for them. But really forgiveness is about me being whole.
Absolutely.
And Shannon said, I can't let myself get bitter, because ultimately if I don't forgive Jimmy, I can't control what he's doing, but I can control my approach to it. And if I don't forgive Jimmy, I'm going to become bitter, and that's going to infiltrate all my relationships.
Yeah.
So she made the decision at that moment to not see me as evil, the devil incarnate. She saw me as a broken human being that could not help themselves.
Which circles all the way back to we're all messed up, which means we have to forgive each other. We have to forgive ourselves. And I love what Shannon says. She says, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hope they die.
Yes.
So once you stop drinking unforgiveness, then it doesn't affect, no matter what happens in this relationship, all your relationships can be healthy and whole.
Absolutely.
And what I love about your story being so real, it just reminds all of us, if Jim and Shannon can work hard and experience hope, I can too.
Amen. This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate, how real it is. So please get the book, and please just know, like I reminded you in episode 1, make sure your hope is in something you can't lose. So don't put your hope in money, your health, or even another relationship. Put your hope in a relationship with God. Romans 15:13, God is the source of hope. And when you find that hope, then you're going to find people like Jim and Shannon and other stories and a book like this that will help you get some traction. And as hope starts to work in your lives and you start to move toward hope, you can be a dealer of hope.
Amen.
And help other people. So
that's why we gave it the title, Hope is Where the Heart Is. Wherever you put your heart, that's where the hope will come or not come from.
I love it. So focus your heart on hope this week, and we'll see you next time on Monday Motivation.